Today, we're diving into a really fascinating conceptual framework. It's one of those ideas that might just change how you look at every single heated conversation you've ever had or ever will have. It's a whole new theory for understanding our biggest, most powerful emotional reactions. So let's just start with a question I think we can all relate to. Why do we, or people we know, sometimes just explode over seemingly small, insignificant things? It's a minor comment, a simple question, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this huge conflict. What is really going on there?
And that's exactly what this model tries to tackle. It's all about unpacking the mystery of that disproportionate reaction. That moment where the emotional outburst just feels completely mismatched with what's happening right now.
I mean, the feeling is so familiar, right? A totally casual remark at the dinner table somehow spirals into a fight that lasts for days. Or you see a news headline in the morning and it leads to you snapping at a coworker in the afternoon. This theory poses a really interesting question. What if the immediate trigger isn't the real cause at all? What if the real cause is hidden and it was set in motion way before the argument ever started?
Okay, so to understand this, we have to start by looking inward. The model introduces this idea called the loaded spring theory, and it asks us to picture our own consciousness as a kind of landscape that can actually store energy.
At the heart of this is a concept called the contour field. So imagine your mind is a terrain with all these hills and valleys. Each one of those features, each contour, represents something deeply personal. Your values, your beliefs, your past traumas, your identity. And just like a real landscape, some of these spots are way, way more sensitive than others.
And here's how the mechanism is supposed to work. First, some kind of narrative. It could be a news article, a conversation, a social media post. It passes over your internal landscape like a breeze. Now, it doesn't affect everything, but it finds one of those really sensitive contours and loads it with potential energy, kind of like coiling a spring. Then, later on, in a completely unrelated moment, someone comes along and just unintentionally touches that exact spot. And that's when it happens. The spring releases all that stored up energy, and you get that massive, disproportionate reaction.
And this is the absolute crucial point, this time delay. You've completely forgotten about the article that made you angry this morning, but the emotional charge it created, that's still there. It's stored up, just waiting. The energy is very real, even if the memory of what created it is gone. So the wrong person at the wrong time gets the full force of it.
But that begs the question, right? Where does that initial charge even come from? It's not just about our personal internal landscape. So let's zoom out a bit and look at the second part of this model, which is all about how this scales up from the individual to the collective.
So this model proposes that there are two fields that are always interacting. On one hand, you've got your personal contour space. That's the unique terrain inside you. But on the other hand, you've got this collective dye template, which is like a coloring that comes from the outside world. So the terrain is internal, but the dye, the thing that decides which parts of your terrain get activated, that comes from powerful external forces.
And when we ask who controls this dye, well, it becomes pretty clear that this influence isn't distributed equally. We're talking about political speeches, national narratives, the way media frames headlines, social media algorithms that amplify certain messages, powerful cultural traditions, even economic narratives about scarcity. All these forces are constantly painting our internal landscapes, deciding which of our contours get loaded with energy.
And this brings us to a really critical point. Because if narratives can be used to load us up with all this emotional energy, then this knowledge is, well, it's a double-edged sword. It has this dual-use nature. It can be a tool for healing or for harm.
You can have what the model calls weaponized dye. These are narratives that are intentionally engineered to load our sensitive spots with fear or guilt or a sense of injustice. They're effectively preloading an entire society with the potential for conflict. But you can also have the complete opposite, an antidote breeze. And these are narratives of safety, forgiveness, or belonging that are designed to find those loaded springs and safely discharge their energy, paving the way for both individual and collective healing.
Okay, let's take a step back for a second. This is a really fascinating model, it's a cool idea, but is it actually true? Let's shift gears and try to look at this from a scientific point of view. How would we even know if this theory holds any water?
Any good theory has to be falsifiable. There has to be a way to prove it wrong. And this one is. For example, this whole model would fall apart if emotional reactions were always immediate and never delayed. Or if everyone reacted in the exact same way to the same story. That would invalidate the whole idea of unique personal contours. Or what if those antidote narratives never actually worked to calm people down?
The fact that we can lay out these conditions means this isn't just some vague metaphor. It's a testable hypothesis. So it's really important to be clear about what this is. This isn't being presented as some proven capital S scientific breakthrough. It's a conceptual synthesis. It's a framework that pulls together ideas from psychology, media studies, and even trauma theory into one coherent and useful model for how we process and react to the world around us.
And if you had to boil this entire idea down to a single sentence, it would be this quote: "The idea that most people believe they're reacting to what's happening right here, right now, but what they're actually doing is discharging the energy from a past narrative, that historical die that has landed on the stored potential within their own unique mind." So, all of this leaves us with one final, and I think really powerful question to take away. The next time you find yourself in a tense situation where you see one unfolding, instead of asking, "Why is this person being so irrational?" maybe you could ask this instead: "Which stored contour did I just touch?" The theory suggests that just that one tiny shift in perspective could be the difference between more conflict and a little more compassion. So, what do you think?